There's only one thing worse than buying a car that doesn't last as much as 30,000 miles. It's buying a car from a brand that just went out of business. You can't do anything. It's basically become a lawn ornament. There's several brands that don't have the staying power through poor management, brutal sales, and nobody clearly wants these vehicles. Let's get into it now. There was a time when a car brand like Jaguar actually had prominence. They have this look, this appeal. They like to have that feeling of luxury motoring. They love the style, the elegance. All of that goes into a lot of these vehicles. And Jaguar had that in spades. And it's unfortunate because the JLR group, the Jaguar Land Rover group, of course owned by Tata Motors now, had created a bunch of products. Land Rovers, Range Rovers, of course, they have products like Jaguar. A lot of these are spilling over from Ford, and even beforehand, British-made vehicles. There was a market, but that market seemed to be dwindling. Higher prices, reliability challenges, the flip-flop of ownership, and the sheer magnitude of some of the quality of the competition just meant that these cars had less and less and less of a market appeal. I mean, here is a car that I absolutely adore this vehicle. This one here is all that's left. See, Jaguar, all they have today is the F-Pace. The F-Pace, this one's the SVR that features a 5-liter V8 and 550 horsepower. And I had an F-Type R, which I also loved, and I adored that. I sold it about a year ago. My heart's still beating over that. I love the car, but it's unfortunate because the brand has pretty much all but shriveled up. F-Pace is like this. You get big wheels, you get all kinds of nice detailing, flip-aways, and all kinds of gorgeous interior. Look, even the sunroof is large and in charge. We have a 5-seat vehicle here, SUV, and it puts serious performance to the table. You can also get diesel engines, 2-liter turbo Ingenium engines. There's all kinds of different variants, including supercharged V6s throughout the different years. But unfortunately, they have lost the space, the market cap. Nobody's buying them. Jaguar decided to rebrand. They saw the sales starting to decline. They were selling all these different models. They came out with the I-Pace saying, we're going to go full beans. And then unfortunately, they tried to rebrand themselves. After that rebranding, many people took exception. Unfortunately, the brand continued just falling right off a cliff. What Jaguar ended up doing was taking a hiatus and essentially stopped producing any new models. Now, if you walk on a Jaguar dealership, all you're going to find are F-Paces, the odd F-Type that's left over from production. E-Paces are gone, and I-Paces are really the only thing left standing. That's right, all these wonderful, glorious ICE engines that Jaguar once knew and loved are going away. They're getting rid of that. And when they come back, they plan to come back in full EV form. The worst part is EV sales are starting to plummet. Nobody's wanting them. There's less support across the globe. Of course, the push and of course incentives are starting to dry up as well. And people are really not getting on board. There's always the die-hard electrified fans, but a lot of people are looking for affordable EVs, not premium EVs like you'd find in a Jaguar, like the I-Pace that are going to cost you 6 figures and beyond. That's not the market. And trying to squeak one out there in that marketplace is a surefire way to go out of business. You can't buy a new car unless it's an existing one that's on the lot. Sales are in the toilet, and I really don't see them sticking around much longer. Another half-watt light bulb for Stellantis is Dodge. Now, you have a brand like this, specifically the Hornet. This particular model is selling extremely poorly. It's more or less a rebadged Alfa Romeo Tonale for just a margin and smidge less money. Unfortunately, these are priced way too high, and the value just doesn't seem to be there. Unfortunately, we've seen these vehicles go down and lose in the first half of 2025 as much as 52% sales, down from the year earlier. Dodge as a whole brand is down 50% as an overall brand, with Chargers and Challengers going away with the V8s and now replacing it with a electrification. That's the core loyalists. That's what they wanted, and they essentially isolated all those buyers. So now they're flip-flopping, looking, should we bring the V8 back? Should we bring it back? What you have now is nothing more than a small SUV that's overpriced, the Dodge Durango, which is the only little bit of a bright spot in the company that actually saw about a 4% increase in sales in the first half of 25. On top of it, the Chargers and Challengers aren't making any sales either. The brand really does not look to be having any significant future. And unfortunately, with the negative inertia and the way it's been, and now we're at a point where, of course, the car market is starting to slightly cool. On top of it, there's strong competition. It begs the question, how many more days? That's right, not months or years. How many more days does Dodge have left? Here's the next one. We're talking about Maserati. Here's a Levante. Now, it's a beautiful vehicle, and when they stand on the road, they definitely certainly have a presence. Here's a GT. You have the Pep Boys looking detailing, and that's the problem. It's the cheapness. These parts look like something you get at Canadian Tire or Pep Boys, but see it realistically, what we have is a vehicle that looks wonderful, sounds wonderful. The association with many Ferrari engines and drivetrains made it a hot topic for a period of time, but the unfortunate reality was Chrysler took it over some time back, way back in the day started throwing bits and pieces of components and plastics and switches and buttons and knobs that felt more like something from a 1989 Dodge Caravan. I've driven these and I think they don't get enough credit, but one man can't make this car survive. And unfortunately, Maserati as a brand is likely not to stick around much more outside of a year. $1.6 billion investment was likely to be injected into the organization to give it a little boost. But guess what? Parent company Stellantis said, So they basically halted that big investment. There's also huge competition. When you're looking at these vehicles, you're thinking, okay, I need a luxury vehicle. I want something fun and fast and fresh. There's lots of choices. Think Audi RSQ8, think BMW X5M, think X6M, think every manufacturer has something that's fun, fresh, and Euro feeling. And this is Italian. However, it's got too much of that North American Stellantis feel to it. Now there's a perceived reliability challenge and many people talk about poor reliability, but is that more perception or is that a reality? There are problems with every vehicle and Maserati's no different. But the fact remains is there's more of this perception of reliability. There's a perception of people don't want to buy it and get into this money pit. And unfortunately, the track record shows depreciation is enough to choke a horse. As much as 60 to 70% depreciation in the first 4 years means that a lot of people don't want to take that chance. They'd rather park $100K or $150,000 into something that's a little bit more dependable. This is where the brand is at right now. It just doesn't have the staying power. It did several years ago, but it seems to be dwindling and people are looking for other options. It's a sad state of affairs. But Stellantis is struggling as a whole with a lot of the brands and the sub-brands like Maserati, Fiat, Alfa Romeo, Dodge, Ram, Chrysler. We'll talk about those in a minute. But unfortunately, Maserati is definitely one that's in serious dire straits. What do you see over here? These all look the same, and these vehicles do as well. See, that's the problem. Nissan and Infiniti collectively, they are struggling right now, and we're seeing all kinds of cutting of jobs, chopping of budgets, and we're seeing the lack of options and interesting new products as one of the key problems and reasons why Nissan has been struggling. Sure, while they say they're hitting a blitz here in the next couple of years, they're saying the Nismo Z is getting a manual, they're saying the Xterra might come out in 28, and there might even be a new Leaf coming out in 26 that looks about $26,000. It's clear that they're trying to incentivize the purchasing. Very few people are buying them. And sure, while you see vehicles like the Nissan Rogue on the streets, they're incentivizing to the point where they really aren't making the profits. The CEO left, the CFO left, and all for the sake of just trying to earn $1 and keep the lights on. If franchisees are starting to hand in their keys and things aren't looking good. While most manufacturers are coming with interesting new technology, new features, even plug-in hybrids is enough to sometimes dig some of these manufacturers out of a hole. Not everybody wants to go EV, but hybrid that's a plug-in might offer some options for some buyers, and Nissan really doesn't have as much of those types of features. There are some options in the Nissan lineup. I personally like the Nissan Frontier and think it's one of the best trucks on the market. The fact remains is large SUVs like this Armada are absolutely massive, and while they believe this is what it takes to sell, I've been here and I've seen these vehicles here on the lot for over a year and a half now. Unfortunately, nobody's buying these. The Pro 4X, extremely large amount of money to sell these vehicles. The pricing was an issue. There are incentives on vehicles like the Rogue, and those were selling to a point. A lot of the vehicles, the sales are down, mismanagement, and the product lines just are stale. This is all a clear indication as we see this downward spiral. Unless you've been hiding in a closet, you probably noticed the lots of news about all kinds of loss, and Nissan and Infiniti are struggling. Even Infiniti, the luxury brand, they have two models. They have the QX60 and the QX80. The QX80 is an absolute gargantuan beast like this, which priced well into the six-figure mark, which definitely isolates that from most buyers. And unfortunately, QX60 was a reliable vehicle with a wonderful naturally aspirated 3.5-liter V6 and a torque converter auto between 22 and about 24. And now they go and add the worst thing they could have, a variable compression 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Go figure. Let's add some more unreliability to the already bad and problematic CVT that Nissan's been struggling with and the Jatco for years. Things aren't looking good for Nissan. While they are trying to create some new fresh ideas, they're seriously on borrowed time unless a major merger is underway. That is actually a marketplace dynamic now that a lot of manufacturers are looking at teaming up. Higher costs of supply chain, higher costs of labor. Many manufacturers are doubling down and making the same product on two sides of a fence and sharing resources. This is nothing new, but Nissan, they haven't figured it out. They had a chance to get on with Honda. Now what? And here's another fine one from Stellantis. We have a Fiat. Their sales are down. The first half of 2025, they've seen a 12% decrease in sales. Now, when the new 500e came out, of course, it had a promise. A lot of buyers started looking for EVs. EVs, of course, something that's affordable, cost-effective with good range, but the 500e didn't really have any of that. It's fun, zippy little vehicle, but it has virtually no range. But the 500e went up in sales about 239%. Even though the sales went up on the 500e, the rest of the lineup continues to struggle. And we're seeing that with the decrease overall within the marketplace. You know, because of some of their quality challenges, the affiliation with Ram, Chrysler, Stellantis means that this brand isn't necessarily the most dependable and certainly not one that many choose. So the Fiat is one of those cars that definitely has a struggling future. A year, maybe even a little bit more, and you won't much see Fiat around much more in North America. Here's another brand, unfortunately, by Stellantis, which likely is not going to be around for any significant amount of time. Chrysler specifically, that sadly enough, all they manufacture now are minivans. I mean, Walter Chrysler would be rolling in his grave if he saw what was happening today. They came from a place with designing and building and manufacturing quality luxury vehicles, large estate type vehicles, vehicles that were very easy to enjoy, and certainly vehicles that had all of the elegance that you would expect from a full-size domestic product. It was almost up there at one point with the likes of Cadillac and Lincoln, but now this is it. This is all they have. Who's buying these? Very few people other than rental companies. We have a vehicle, sure, they give you alloys and they give you this great little grille, but it's still very, very basic. And there's nothing particularly quality when it comes to looking at these vehicles. I mean, they're long, large, and in charge. It looks essentially like a submarine, but the worst part is the quality, the durability is not there. There's one vehicle, the Chrysler minivan. Nobody buys minivans. Everybody's buying SUVs. Minivan sales are down, and those few that want them are buying vehicles like Honda Odyssey or the Toyota Sienna are the only vans that those few people are actually buying. Sure, while you see a few of these out there, they're largely fleet vehicles, and generally speaking, nobody's buying them. So what does that future for Chrysler look like? It's certainly not very bright when you consider this is all they have, poor seller, spiraling downwards, and Stellantis as a whole is also on the verge of serious financial trouble. With all of that said, be sure to check right there about some of the best cars you can still buy in 2025. Some of the best, most reliable. You're going to want to buy that. I mean, we all work hard for our money, right? Hope to see each and every one of you real soon. See you then. Bye-bye.